Welcome to AmeriCorps 101. I'm Andrea Johnston, Senior Program Officer with Volunteer New Hampshire.
And I'm Emily Planchet, Program Officer with Volunteer New Hampshire.
During this presentation, we're going to talk about different AmeriCorps opportunities that exist in New Hampshire. And then we'll discuss the specific AmeriCorps state programs in New Hampshire. And then how you can access different resources that could help with your organization's needs. So AmeriCorps, what is it? Probably some of you are familiar with the Corporation for National and Community Service, which was also known as CNCS. They have merged with all national service programs to just be one entity called AmeriCorps. So that encompasses NCCC, Senior Corps, Vista, and all the AmeriCorps state programs as well. So AmeriCorps, as it's known now, is the federal agency that is tasked with elevating service and volunteerism all across America. And it is pronounced AmeriCorps, not AmeriCorps. So what does AmeriCorps do? So primarily, AmeriCorps provides grants to fund programs such as AmeriCorps State, AmeriCorps Vista, Senior Corps, and NCCC. They lead national days of service, including the 9/11 Day of Service and Remembrance, Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, events like AmeriCorps Week. And AmeriCorps also provides volunteer generation funds to state service commissions, of which Volunteer New Hampshire is. And those are provided in order to promote skilled volunteerism in those states. AmeriCorps also connects individuals to their communities, and also working with organizations to help tackle toughest challenges in those communities. So AmeriCorps has 6 key focus areas that are designated to make an impact. So Congress has designated these 6 areas to kind of roll up all the different performance measures and data to help make the biggest impact. So the 6 focus areas are disaster response, and an example of that could be assisting a community with cleanup after a disaster. So a big example where AmeriCorps was present was during Hurricane Katrina. There was a lot of national service and AmeriCorps assistance given during that time. Economic opportunity, another example would be helping to improve job preparedness for folks. Education, so that could be mentoring at-risk youth or helping individuals seek a post-secondary degree for their education. Environmental stewardship, so different activities could be environmental education, could also be trail maintenance. The next category is healthy futures, so that could include things like drug misuse and recovery programs. It could also be teaching children healthy habits, things like that. And then there's veterans and military families. So that's primarily helping veterans and military families with things like securing employment, also helping to find affordable housing and other things in that area. So in New Hampshire, we have what's called AmeriCorps state programs that Volunteer New Hampshire oversees. So you'll see on the chart, the circle where Volunteer New Hampshire is. It falls under AmeriCorps, the umbrella agency. So you have Volunteer New Hampshire, then you have some Vista projects in the middle, then off to the right you have AmeriCorps seniors programs, and then you have AmeriCorps NCCC. So again, Volunteer New Hampshire is responsible for the administration and oversight of all the AmeriCorps state programs, which you'll see listed out here. So if you look, you'll see City or New Hampshire, AmeriCorps Victims Assistance Program, Student Conservation Association, Goodwill, Lakes Region Conservation Corps, Boy Scouts of America, and Epilepsy Foundation of New England. So these 8 programs that we have various focus areas that we just talked about, and they range from environmental education to healthy futures. So some of the different things that pertain to the AmeriCorps state programs, you'll see the first one being service activities. So AmeriCorps members provide direct service. So they're doing hands-on activities. So that could be mentoring youth, that could be assisting victims of domestic and sexual violence on a call line or working in a shelter. That could be providing environmental education to students, or it could be trail maintenance. So a lot of different hands-on activities, working one-on-one with different organizations and folks in those programs. So the focus areas of those programs, they usually typically fall within one of those 6 key focus areas that we mentioned. They have what's called a cohort size. So a minimum program size is usually 10 members, and they go from 10 plus. Our largest program has over 70 full-time AmeriCorps members. And then with AmeriCorps State, there are specific hour requirements that members need to fulfill. And it's usually anywhere from serving 100 hours, which could be in a summer program, all the way up to a full-time AmeriCorps position with over 1,700 hours needing to be served. So what is Volunteer New Hampshire's role in AmeriCorps State? So we are the designated state service commission. So we administer these AmeriCorps State grants, and we provide programmatic and fiscal oversight. So as stewards of these federal dollars, it's our responsibility to make sure that these programs are doing what they say they should do, and also following these federal and local guidelines. So you'll see that in 2020 to 2022, we have 3 different priority areas that Volunteer New Hampshire has dedicated, and this was through what's called a state service plan. So we'll get into that a little later on, but every 3 years, Volunteer New Hampshire conducts basically a needs assessment throughout the state of what the top priorities are and how we can address it through using national service resources. So our current funding priorities are economic opportunity, mainly consisting of affordable housing, transportation, workforce development, and then addressing food insecurity. And we have healthy futures, which is consistent of substance misuse and mental health. And then we have education, so things like after-school programming, environmental stewardship and education, and then access to higher education and training. So the AmeriCorps state programs, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, we have a total of 8 programs right now, full-time programs, and we receive over $3 million for those programs. There's over 271 positions that are available throughout all of those 8 programs.
All right, so you've heard a little bit about AmeriCorps state programs. Now we're going to talk a little bit about AmeriCorps Vista. As you can see here in the chart, there it is. It also has some sub-programs, but we'll talk about that in a second. So AmeriCorps Vista, unlike AmeriCorps State, deals with what we call indirect service. So they focus more on capacity building of an organization and its sustainability. So every project that AmeriCorps Vista works on is related to those 2 things. So that can take place in a myriad of ways, such as fundraising, volunteer management, any sort of development work, anything to increase organizations' capacity to deliver its programming, whatever that programming might be. So you can imagine an AmeriCorps state member is, if they're in education and doing an education related project. So an AmeriCorps state member would be, say, mentoring the youth, whereas an AmeriCorps Vista member would be creating the mentoring project for the AmeriCorps state member to deliver, if you want to think about it kind of like that. Focus areas, all AmeriCorps Vista projects must have something to do with poverty and fighting poverty. Whereas an AmeriCorps state program might have 10 or more members doing the exact same thing, perhaps in different places. AmeriCorps Vista or there's only 1 or 2 AmeriCorps Vistas at an organization at a time, and they would be doing different things. So if you had an organization with 2 AmeriCorps Vistas, one might be working on, say, fundraising, where another might be working on volunteer management. And there is not a specific hour requirement for AmeriCorps Vista members because they're expected to serve for a full year, and they're considered sort of 24/7. So AmeriCorps Seniors, this is also a different program. Obviously, if you could probably guess, it is related to seniors. So, as you can see in the chart here, there are 3 sub-programs. So this program is for adults 55 or plus to participate in. So all members of AmeriCorps Seniors programs are the age 55 plus. And they can do things, they can participate in any of these 3 sub-programs: RSVP, foster grandparents, and senior companions. So RSVP is a lot like AmeriCorps State. So AmeriCorps Seniors members use their skills and talents that they developed over the course of their lifetime. But now they're using it towards volunteering. So they can do pretty much anything. Like if they're computer savvy, they can do data input for organizations. They can lead bone building exercises to prevent osteoporosis. There's pretty much no limit to what they can do. Foster grandparents, members are placed, or volunteers are placed in schools and after school programs to serve as mentors for youth who really need it. So they'll do things like mentoring, tutoring, helping with homework, and reading skills, things like that. And then senior companions is meant for seniors helping seniors. So a senior will be paired with 1 or more other seniors, and they'll go to their homes and they'll do things like light housekeeping and driving them to appointments or helping them grocery shop. And that's all just aimed at keeping them in their homes for as long as possible and independent as long as possible as well. So we also have AmeriCorps NCCC. So there it is, right there in the little chart of AmeriCorps programs. AmeriCorps NCCC is sort of like AmeriCorps State, but it's more targeted. So members of AmeriCorps NCCC programs have to be within the 18 to 26 range, so it can be considered a youth program. And so these members are placed in cohorts of at least 10, but usually more. And they travel across their region, which encompasses a myriad of states, doing specific projects. So one day they might be in Ohio, the next day they might be in New Hampshire. Like they can travel pretty far. And the projects that they work on they're usually disaster related, infrastructure improvement, environmental conservation, projects of that nature. Members serve for 10 months, and the projects that they work on multiple projects ranging from 6 to 8 weeks.
All right, now that you've learned about all the different national service programs, we can talk about how you can benefit, or your organization can benefit from these resources. So the first opportunity is to become a host site. So what is a host site? A host site's an organization that agrees to take a certain number of AmeriCorps members to carry out an agreed upon activity to serve. So it could be a school, a government organization, a nonprofit, a community organization, and some others as well. So host sites must provide adequate resources, and those would include such things as office space for the member to serve at, and things like technology, having access to computers and the internet. And also the host site must be able to provide supervision to ensure that the member has a successful service year. Some other things like training would also be included in there as well. There is typically a fee that is charged to the host site to have an AmeriCorps member, and that varies depending on the different program. So to become a host site in New Hampshire, there's a couple of different ways to do this. So for AmeriCorps State, you would want to go to Volunteer New Hampshire's website and look at all of the different programs that we have operating. And you would want to look at, see what would be a good fit for your organization. And then at that point, you could reach out directly to the program, usually the program director. Their contact information is listed, and you would tell them that you're interested in becoming a host site. So also with a host site, different recruitment opportunities are different based on the actual program that you're looking to join with. So usually it's a one-year cycle, and you would discuss how many AmeriCorps members that you would be looking to have. Again, there are usually fees associated with becoming a host site. You would also be expected to participate in supervisor training with the program that you'd be working with. And then each program has very specific requirements to their own program. All right, so to become a host site for AmeriCorps Vista, you would want to identify an organization-specific project that is a year-long project that also has a poverty-related issue attached to it. So then you would want to contact the Vista coordinator of the Vista project. It could be Catholic Charities, and you would want to discuss placement of a Vista. So if it's determined to be a good fit, you would submit what's called a concept paper, and that would basically outline your proposed project. So then if you're accepted, your organization would be given a Vista member to be placed. So Vista also would have a fee that you would have to pay, and again, that's dependent on what you agree upon with that Vista placement site. All right, so now how can your organization operate an AmeriCorps program? So there's a couple of different ways to go about this. You can apply for AmeriCorps state program grants or a planning grant. So AmeriCorps state program grants. Volunteer New Hampshire has two funding opportunities throughout the year for grants. One is the AmeriCorps Formula Grant, and the other one is the AmeriCorps Competitive Grant. Both of them have very specific eligibility requirements, and all of these are posted through our Notice of Funding Opportunity, which we do send out. It's also available on our website. So I'll start with the AmeriCorps Formula Grants. So these are grants that are administered directly through Volunteer New Hampshire. So we have our designated set of priorities through our state service plan, and you would apply to that. These grants are 1 year in length, and the competition usually starts in February and goes through the end of May. These funding decisions, again, are made at the local level, at Volunteer New Hampshire's, the commission level. And again, there's very specific eligibility requirements to apply for that. So you'd want to take a look at those in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Now, the AmeriCorps competitive grants, these are a little bit different. This is a national competition through AmeriCorps. You would first apply through Volunteer New Hampshire. If you meet those eligibility requirements and we approve it, then we would move it on to the national competition through AmeriCorps on the national level. So these grants are 3 years long, and that competition usually will start in September and ends in December. Again, those funding decisions are made at the national level, with your application first coming through Volunteer New Hampshire. And programs that go into this competition usually have to fall into one of the national focus and priority areas that we had mentioned earlier. And again, all of those are listed in the Notice of Funding Opportunity and are available on our website. So then we have the AmeriCorps state planning grants. So if you've never operated an AmeriCorps program, you're not that familiar with how to manage federal funds, you would want to start off exploring a planning grant. So these are grants that are given to organizations for 1 year. There's no members associated with it. It's money is used to spend the year to develop an AmeriCorps program. So you would look at how you're going to operate the program, what needs and priorities you're going to address, and then throughout that planning year, you would work on very specific measures throughout the year. So you would develop an AmeriCorps member activity or activities, multiple activities, what the members would be doing to solve your identified community problem or need. You would work on a recruitment strategy. How are you going to recruit members? You would also have to have a performance measurement and data collection plan in place. Again, you need to show data and statistics of how your members are making a difference and how you're dealing with that community need or problem. You'd use that time also to develop your host site partners. Who are you going to work with to place members at? What other organizations will you partner with? And then you would also need to provide orientation and training for members. So you would come up with a plan on how you're going to do that and train them on your specific activities that they'll carry out throughout the year. And then you would also want to formulate and develop how you're going to come up with your matching grant funds through that year.
Okay, so maybe you're looking at AmeriCorps state programs and you think that perhaps you have something that you'd like done for your organization, but it's not something that you would continue more than, say, a few months. Then perhaps AmeriCorps NCCC project might be more of a place that you can take advantage of. So as we talked about, so AmeriCorps NCCC works on projects that are approximately 6 to 8 weeks long. So if your organization has a project like that, you can submit essentially what you do is you submit a concept paper to the NCCC regional office. And just as a reminder, these projects typically fall within things like energy conservation, disaster preparedness, response or recovery, infrastructure improvement, urban and rural development, things of that nature. However, it is possible that even if yours doesn't necessarily fall under one of those things, it is possible that they still might be able to do it for you. So just keep that in mind. And the other thing to remember is that the members would be working full time on whatever this project is. So it would have to be robust enough to be able to support that. And other things to remember is that if you are accepted, your project is accepted, then you would need to provide places either like a lodging for the members. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. A lot of times it could be church basements, cabins, things like that. And then also a place where either you can feed them or that they, or a place that they can cook their own food. So some sort of kitchen. Another avenue that you might look into if you have a project that maybe is, once again, more of a short-term project, but maybe something that you need for just a year or two, you could also look into applying for a Volunteer Generation Fund grant from Volunteer New Hampshire. So the Volunteer Generation Fund is awarded from AmeriCorps to state service commissions, which once again, that's what Volunteer New Hampshire is, the State Service Commission for New Hampshire. And just like it says in the title, it's really to expand volunteerism in the state through a multitude of ways. So, expanding the capacity of volunteer programs, as well as just helping organizations create strategies to expand their volunteering or use their volunteers more effectively. So what we do in our state is we offer 1-year grants to organizations to complete or do substantial work on a volunteer related project. So things that we have seen this past year, things like creating a cross-generational volunteer project. So really they might have volunteers that skew either older or younger. So they want to see if they can kind of develop volunteers from the other generation, so either younger or older. If they needed funds to purchase software to develop an online training platform, that's something that we can help with. Creating volunteer manuals or volunteer recognition programs, things like that. So if that's something that your organization is looking for, we do offer funding for it.
Okay, so Some other ways that your organization can take advantage of these resources are to become a service site for a National Day of Service project. So National Days of Service there are days of service that AmeriCorps has designated nationally where programs and members can come together, be out in the community and promote volunteerism, share the good work of all the AmeriCorps programs, what we're doing. And it's a different way for members to serve in the community while educating folks about AmeriCorps as well. So we have our MLK Day of Service in January. In recent years, one of our we had over 38 service projects during one of the MLK Day of Service events. And for one of those projects, the AmeriCorps members had collected over 644 pounds of food that they distributed and donated to different food pantries in the area. We also have AmeriCorps Week, which is typically held in March. That's basically all the AmeriCorps members in the state come together and they work on service projects. They can also do different things about learning about local government, networking with AmeriCorps alum, and different things like that. And we also have the 9/11 Day of Service and Remembrance. In New Hampshire, we partner with United Way's Day of Caring. And in recent years, there's been over 2,000 volunteers, including the AmeriCorps members that have participated in that and worked on over 150 service projects throughout the state. So these days of service are a great way for AmeriCorps members to get out into the community and do something that's different than their normal day-to-day AmeriCorps service, also to promote volunteerism. So your organization could partner and become a host site for one of these service projects. So how you'd go about doing that, you could certainly contact us, and we also post these opportunities on our website through our Get Connected volunteer management database. We will tell you when we're posting opportunities for sites, so you can be on the lookout for that. And some of those activities could be anywhere from doing a physical service project of doing some painting or outside yard work or light maintenance to conducting food and clothing drives, things like that.
So we've mentioned this throughout the entirety of the presentation about our state service plan. And so we don't just come up with these priorities as we've talked about, we do like to hear from you about what you think the needs are that aren't being met in our state. So just to kind of reiterate, our state service plan, we update it every 3 years. We are currently in our second year of our state service plan, and our top 3 priorities are economic opportunity, education, and healthy futures. So within those larger needs, we're talking about things like transportation and affordable housing, the opioid crisis, mental health, after-school education. So those are the things that have been identified by the public that they feel really could use some national service resources. So how we figure out what these needs are is usually the third year of our 3-year plan, we start hosting listening sessions or roundtable discussions in different parts of the state so that we are geographically diverse. And we essentially just ask anyone who comes, like, what do you feel are the needs that aren't being met that we can devote national service resources to? Like, that's how we can devote our funding. So we hear from just New Hampshire residents, local, like state government leaders, local government leaders, nonprofits, businesses, really anyone. And then they say what they feel that the needs are. And we also have an online survey as well to get the maximum amount of participation. And then we just take all that data, we look at it, we analyze it, and then that is how we come up with our top 3 needs. So we'll be starting that process up again probably next year. So we'll definitely be sending out information as widely as we can to ask you what you think the needs are. So we definitely encourage you to participate in that discussion because it's really helpful to us to know what you need.
All right, so thank you for watching our presentation. Again, this was meant to be AmeriCorps 101, so some very basic information, and there's certainly a lot more in-depth information that's available. And if you want to know more about any of the programs, certainly for AmeriCorps State and anything Volunteer New Hampshire, you can reach out to myself or Emily. We also have the Volunteer Generation Fund specific information, AmeriCorps NCCC, and then AmeriCorps Vista and AmeriCorps Seniors. So feel free to reach out to any of those individuals for those specific projects, or you can always contact Volunteer New Hampshire directly, and we can put you in touch with the right person. We work very closely with all of these programs, and we're part of a service alliance together. So we can certainly help direct you to whatever resource that you're looking for.